Hey guys, doing a demo for the Art Students League. So here we go. Okay, so where's my pencil gone? Just to save time, I did just a very brief, maybe 10 or 15 minutes with a little sketch of my daughter there. Just with a little pencil. And all these marks will go away. I'm going to mix some paint now, just to put a little wash in there. I'm also going to think about some of the paint I want to put there as well. Just quickly mix up some stuff. Thinking about the darks a little bit, and then the lights as well. I'll keep that white clean. Okay. And as I mix the paint, I want to make sure I keep the two sets of values in the same place, my light values and my dark values. That makes a cool tone here. Okay. And just keeping all the tones together in one place. The values. Draw a little bit more in just a second. Keeping simple color combinations, as you can see too. Okay, I think that should be enough to get me started. Okay. So first I'm going to put just a little wash in. Should use a slightly thicker brush, picks up more paint. Trying to knock all the white out. So just the Gamsol and some ultramarine blue and some transparent red oxide, basically. And I'll take a paper towel, kind of wipe it down a little bit. Honestly, it's a really small group, so if you guys want to ask questions, please do, okay? You can unmute and then remute. So just taking all that excess off. You can see a very faint part of the drawing still left. Okay, so that's good there. Now I'm going to use my charcoal just to make a few marks off the drawing for my daughter right here, just trying to use straight lines. Again, just looking for proportion, not trying to get a perfect drawing here, but also not trying to be inaccurate because that doesn't help. Trying to get these angles in place. Trying to make sure I understand the angle of the eyes versus the angle of the mouth. Drawing is hard, painting is hard too, but practice really helps refine your skills. So just keep at it. Okay. Just a rough proportion of where things are. Just trying to think about the design and also a little bit of the likeness, even as at this early stage. I'll step back, look at it. All right. Then I like to take a, show you what I've got on the palette again, just briefly. I'll switch the camera. So I've basically grouped kind of a couple of dark colors here for the shadow, a couple of light colors here. And I'm just going to take this really thin brush and make a few lines, just kind of make them permanent, mostly permanent. So as I start to paint, I don't lose all my drawing references. And it's very thin. The thing with painting is, as you're trying to paint this, you're working on a value relationship, which I'll show you in just a second. But you're constantly trying to, you never stop drawing. It's not like the drawing's done and then you paint in the lines. It's never that. But I'm trying to break down the problem into manageable parts where I'm mixing the colors kind of separately. And here I'm just trying to figure out where the light and shadow meet. It's absolutely fine to ask questions because it's a very small group. So unmute yourself and ask a question and then remute it if you'd like. It's not a problem. And you don't have to have a question too, it's fine. So shadow areas. Okay. I'm gonna keep taking pictures too so that um, okay. So that's pretty much all the drawing I think I'm going to need. You know, proportionately, maybe I'm drawing it a little bit bigger than what I see there. Now I'm going to take, as you can tell, I've got, you know, bunches of brushes. And in this setup, I really want to do as close as I could for the, so you can see the painting that's going on. Okay. So I'm going to take some of that dark mixture I made and thin it out just a little bit. Make another mixture of some ultramarine and, excuse me, some viridian and some cad red light. And just going to, and I'll switch to my palette in just a second. I want to put this in, but I want to put it in a very thin way so that some of the white of the canvas kind of comes through a little bit at this early stage. Okay? I don't want to make it so opaque that I've lost that completely. And if you'll notice, I'm going to go over, maybe that's a little too thin, but I'm going to go over most of my drawing as I'm doing this. So I have to kind of bring that back out again. I'm using a soft brush right now. I'm using one of the rosemary long flats at this early stage. I'll use this brush later again. I'm just trying to put in some shadows right here. So I'm keying to the dark in this case. And the temptation is to go real fast because I don't really have much time for this demo, but I'm not going to go too fast. I'm recording it, so we'll make it available off the League's website as well later on. Again, the nose kind of ends like right here, but the shadow's up on top. So I'm just really kind of following that shadow shape. Trying to understand where the top of the ear is, bottom of the ear in relation to the mouth. Gives you the perspective of where you're looking at the subject. Okay. So I've kept it real light here, and I'm just going to keep taking pictures so I can make them available to you guys as well. Okay. I'm going to use, I like these Robert Simmons brushes a lot too. And I'm going to, just going to flip to the canvas for just a second so I can talk about the colors, to the palette, excuse me. So this was the wash I'd used, and I've just used these two values right now for washing in the shadows. And out here, I'm trying to mix a value. Besides, I've got, you know, really warm colors, and in relation to that, much cooler colors. I've got like a purple, some kind of a red-green kind of thing. And I've got this, which is really similar to that. So I'm just going to add a little kind of blue to it. So it's a good bit different. But I want these roughly the same value. I'm going to kind of put it next to it in just a bit and see if that separation is enough that explains what's happening here on my canvas. And I'm also not going to go very light with this so that I have room to make a few lighter shapes, and especially the highlight. So just some thoughts around that. Okay. And this may be just a little too light, that wash there, but We'll see. So looking at I think that wash is looking a little light because this is looking quite dark next to it. So let's just lighten it just a little bit. And again, I don't want to really work on the whole painting right now. I just want to work on a little part of it so that I understand what the separation between the two is enough or not, or is it too far? Just bringing some more of the one of the values for the shadow and just kind of put it right next to it. And the minute I put one more pass on it and see how much darker it looks, just because it's much more opaque, but it's nowhere near black. But because on this palette right now, I only have these two notes, these two values, that's going to, look like the darkest thing there is, because indeed that's the darkest thing there is right now. When I add a darker value to it, this will all of a sudden look a lot lighter. And correspondingly, that's the lightest value besides what's on the ground of the canvas. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this just a little more opaque. Okay, I'll have to redraw the eye. That's okay. There's going to be like this half-tone shadow thing there, but I'll come back to that in just a bit. For now, I'm just going to lose most of that. Now let's try this again. Lighten it just a pinch and see what that does. Yep, that's a little better. So I've got this. The shadows are very warm. So in relation to that, I want my face here in the light to be relatively cooler, because that's how light works. It usually flips. Okay, so let's go ahead and cover up. There's going to be a lot more colors out here, but the value relationship shouldn't change too much. Okay, so it's more trying to be as organized as I can out here with this process. Okay, and I'm using a different brush, a slightly heavier, thicker brush for the lights. And I'll use different brushes. I don't want to use the same brush because I have to keep cleaning it then, and also it's not good and you can't get it quite clean enough. So you'll start to bleed the darks over the lights. I'm trying to keep the colors as clean as I can. So now let's put in something a little warmer. So this is a fairly cool, it's more like orange and blue mixed together. And now I'm using more of a cad red and yellow with white mixture. Okay, that's a little too light value-wise. So I just trying to do my painting in two values in the beginning. So I want to make it just the same value as this, but it's a much brighter color, a much more red yellow color. I'm going to sparingly put that in a few areas. I'm going to carve out this nose a little bit. Okay. The start of the painting is really important because it really sets the tone for the basic value relationships, and you have to be happy with where this is headed before you start getting too involved with the drawing, the halftones, and all the lightness and stuff like that. proportionately things are in place just with two values. Okay. Okay. So let's go. I'm going to use constantly developing both those shapes. And if you'll notice, my reference is side by side as well. Okay. Kind of going, establishing really the dark. There's a nice core out here that I want to kind of establish. Kind of goes down right this way. I'm going to put that in place and kind of work everything around it and come back. The same thing will happen with the nose too. I'm not that concerned about the local colors, but I'm more concerned about the values I'm putting down, and honestly the correct temperatures of the colors too. Trying to get a sense of where the eye socket is. To me, the drawing really helps the process for me. Makes it much easier as I'm going along. Where is the eyeball in relation to where her lips end? It's not here, it's closer to kind of an angle like that. I haven't put any halftones and I'm really trying to stick to two values right now. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce another value that's kind of in the shadow, but it's a little lighter than all these really distinct darks. So I'm just actually going to go to the shadow values that I had mixed, just lighten them just a tad. Okay. Let's see what that does. So if I switch my camera right here to the palette again for a second, you'll notice I've lightened this just a tad from what I was using, okay? That's kind of what I'm doing right now. Okay. And I think this part's going to be a lot lighter, but so if I put this right here, you'll see, just shift it just a bit more so you can see it very clearly. So let's go ahead and put that down and kind of help draw some of that nose. And this chin's obviously sticking out a little bit from where her eye socket is, so it's catching a little bit more light. Let's go ahead and put that down on the forehead too. So it's just like a half a value shift. Maybe too much, we'll see. I don't want to open up that shadow that much, so. Okay, so now let's open it a little bit more to mix a whole, and just use some yellow ochre and some viridian here. And try, the thing with colors is I'm just trying to get a sense of what the colors are there. I'm not trying to match them exactly. Once you start to key everything to the appropriate value, it makes it so much simpler to think about color. Yeah, like that. Okay, so the chin here is really good. The cheek's really getting a lot of light. So I'm Just going to lighten it just a bit more. It's almost like a half tone, but it's still in the shadow. And it helps define this core shadow. It doesn't have to be that prominent. I'm just kind of explaining it to you guys right here. Great. Lips there. Chin. So you're continuously drawing the whole time. Okay. So let's put a few more. Get a slightly smaller brush here. Let's try. That's the same size. Let's try and put a few more kind of nice chromatic colors here that are roughly the same value of what's happened so far. The brush I got had some dirty paint on it, so I'm wiping it out. You see, I'm trying to make it a little redder around the cheek, but I'm not really switching the value much so that this whole thing holds as one light shape first. That's one of those key things. Here's a much cooler color. The minute I put this cooler color down, this whole color, which was fairly cool earlier on, will start to appear a little warmer. And that's the real interesting thing about these relative values right here. I think you can see that there. Yep. It's really, everything you put down has a response with everything. Everything else reacts to it. So this is going to get darker here. So I'm going to use a smaller brush here. And when I need to, I've got my mal stick here. I can put this right here and kind of rest my arm. When I finally start to really slow down the drawing, I'm going to start with this area. I'm going to be nice and bold as I put down this. And if it's too dark, I can lighten it quite easily by fanning it out or blending it a bit. Not a big deal. Okay. Just working on the drawing slowly as things progress as well. I'm just going to put this mouse stick down for now. I'm going to start to paint very slowly when that happens. And we have I'm going to go for another half an hour or so. So I hope you guys can stay. Because I want it to. So how do if this is looking too prominent, then you just take a slightly lighter color there. Okay. Or you can take a fan brush and fan it a bit. Take a slightly lighter color and just kind of go over it a little lightly and kind of improve the drawing. Lips are nice and rich. Just going to put, it's still in the shadow. The top part of the lip is still, and if you squint at the reference, you'll see it's still in the shadow. And so is the, the part that's turning away off the lower lip right here. Okay. Trying to see it as just two simple shapes, basically two values right now. Okay. So I just start to. How about I put some of this purple color that I had shown you earlier on. And I'll switch to my palette in just a second kind of show you this. So I'm going to go with an even cooler color. Maybe that's too cool for now, but I'm just going to show you what the possibilities are. I don't really see any purple on her, but I'm just putting some of this down. So right now, to me, I think I want a little bit more richness on her face. So I'm going to start to mix a few halftones. So let me just switch to this other palette right here. So the camera quickly. So here were the darks. Here was the red for the lips. Here's some of these almost halftones that I'm putting there, which I'll lighten a bit. And here's the values. These are the values for basically what's happening there. I'm really keeping that organized. The halftones I'm going to put here, and the real lights I'm going to put there, okay? So I'm going to mix a couple of halftones right now. So it's not just taking that and lightening it. I'm really trying to, it's much more elegant if you mix more colors up. So, and the values are basically in between these two, but the halftone's always in the light. So I'm going to make sure it wants to be part of this shape right here and not the shadow shape, okay? And what controls it is how dark the color is, nothing else, okay? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch that now. Back to my canvas, okay? And you'll see as I start to put these real rich tones down, the painting will start to come to life a little bit more. Halftone there, and then around it, it's going to have kind of a lighter shadow color. And I'm constantly kind of pushing and pulling these values so that it makes sense to me in the painting. Trying not to lock too much in right now. Okay, I'm just going to quietly paint and concentrate on that. Okay. Want some more richness here. Just feel like it could do with a lot more richness. Let's put these halftones down. The bottom of the nose is going to have a real, before it goes into the shadow, it's going to have these halftones. This is going to be in the shadow all the way around till about here. I'm just using values to control that. Okay. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. Constantly drawing. Drawing never stops. And as I paint more, my paint's getting a little thicker so that it sits on top of the thinner paint. Makes sense. Let me take a quick picture of that. I'll put the eyes in just a few minutes. Yep. Okay. This is a real critical part of the painting right here. Where the eyes and nose kind of meet up. Let's see. Okay. More halftones. Here we go. Show you another one right here. We halftone right there. In between the light and the shadow. Some kind of going around like this. Really kind of helps define these edges in a more gentle way. You slowly work on it. That's all you do. So this part's in the light versus what's going into the shadow right there. Again, those something's looking a little choppy. The transition is not that hard to do. Either you mix up a value between the two, or you take a little brush and you kind of just. Okay. Now I'm going to, oops, wrong paint right there. Just thinking out loud out here. Let's put, I'm going to put the real darks. Let's just put some eyes in there just to make sure things are kind of in the right place. Okay. So I'm mixing up kind of my darkest value, and you'll see, just pay attention when I put it there, it should really make these values, you know, incredibly lighter. So I'm going to try and real slow down my drawing right here. Just going to put a big blob down there. Okay. Just a sense of where. And you just basically put the eyeball down, then you can lighten it and do a bunch of other things. Yeah, I didn't lighten it as much as I wanted to, so I will lighten it myself. So I'm going to lighten. I think this is way too dark. I'm going to lighten that whole part. There we go. That makes a little bit more sense. And I'll darken the stuff around the eye socket just a bit. Let's fix this drawing of her nose. Needs to come in a bit more. And to me, I figured that out by stepping back and looking at it very objectively. You know, what's not looking quite right. So I'm going to show you how this whole eye thing works. Just going to put in a mark for the nostril right there. Okay. Okay. Always think about when you put something down, what big value shape is it part of? Is it part of the light shape, or the shadow shape. That's why thinking about it from a value standpoint is really, really important. Okay. Slowly refining the drawing, finding, going from the general to the specific. Okay. Yep. So just that little change makes, now yeah, I think this is too big a blob of that black, but once I put it down, I can take the value of the shadow and kind of just correctly draw it into place. See that there? And you put in the other eyeball kind of in place. I'm trying to figure out what the angle of that is. It's not straight, it's more this way, I think. So I'm going to get it and I'm going to put it right here. So think of it as a triangle right there. Just trying to make sure that quite lines up using plumb lines. So let's see, step back and see if it's really important that you get your eyeballs in the right place. And I'm constantly moving them too. So you should use a mild stick right now. That makes sense, yep. So then you can start to, I think this is looking maybe a little too wide apart. So I'm going to bring that eye in just a bit. And unless you put those marks down, you can't really tell. So you have to put it down and constantly evaluate, what can I do to make it a little better? So even though the white of the eyeball is white, it's still in the shadow. So I'm putting in a lighter color here, but it's still darker than anything else that's happening in the light. So this part of her eyeball is going to be in the shadow. And there's some really cool darks around here. So let's put this down. Got a lot of range left in the dark now. So let's try and define some of the eyeballs and the eye around it. Hmm. You notice I haven't painted the eyebrow yet because it's kind of a different beast out there. So I'll do that in just a bit. And this is generally the order of progression for me. I've seen a lot of other painters kind of use that same process. So let's kind of define one of the two eyes so we'll know where things are. Okay. Just switch to my palette just for a second. And if you'll notice, the real darks are right here. This was the main color of the mother value of the shadow. Halftones are right here. And the lights are here. I still haven't, put in my highlights, but I've got all the way to white to go there. Okay. So I'll take a picture of that too. Okay. So really being very cognizant of how many values I'm just kind of putting on, not trying to copy what's this value, what's this value, what's this. It's just two big shapes, and then you break that down further. Okay. So this part of her eye is right below the eyelid. Okay. The drawing of the eye is really important. Kind of goes up here. I'll show you a couple of things about the eye. I said right from the beginning, you're drawing all the time when you're painting. The drawing never stops. So below the eye, there's this, the eye socket right here, this nice shadow shape here. And then it kind of goes off into like a half tone, just to kind of get that rounded look there. Maybe there's a valley in between. But here's the real key thing I want to show you, is there's a bit of light, and this always look for this when you're trying to define the eye. Look, there's a bit of light right there. And I'm going to put it just very lightly. Just right there. And just that one little stroke, I hope you can see that, will define most of the eyelid for you, the bottom eyelid right there. And there's one little bit, not as prominent, right here, where your teardrop is. So those two things are really critical. And I can just leave that eye alone right now, it's fine. I think this purple is bugging me here, so I'm going to, when you see something that's bugging you, you should fix it. Don't wait. So let's put in this tone right there. Yeah, much better. It's a little warmer. That was just too abnormally cool. So I'm just going to correct all that very quickly. Okay. So now, thank you guys for staying along here. I'm going to put in just the part of the eyebrow so it'll kind of start to look like her. Honestly, when I'm painting this in my studio, I'd take a lot more time over it. That was way too high, so I'll correct that. You can't lose your concentration at all. So let's correct that. Okay. This eyebrow has a different shape to it. Okay. Maybe put a hint of an eyelid there. Okay. A little bit of an eyelid right there. Okay. So now quickly I'm going to, this is a little quick demo of a face. So try and wrap it up in the next 10-15 minutes right here. So let's put in define this nose for you here too. That's a really important shape right here. This is in the shadow. This whole thing is kind of in the shadow, but there's a little part right here that'll pick up just a little light. And if you see it, you should put it down because it's really beautiful. And that makes a big difference in the way the likeness is rendered and so on and so forth. Okay. That's good for now. Let's put these down here. I'm coming to the highlight for the nose too. That's a really key part. Yep. Okay. Before I come to that, I'm just kind of babble about a couple of things right here. This transition is also a soft transition. It's not a very hard transition. And that's one of the markers of trying to really understand the way the anatomy of the face works. The minute you soften up that transition, it really starts to look much more believable. It's a softer transition than what's happening between, the cast shadow right here. I hope that makes sense. I can lighten it a little bit here. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to add just a few lighter values. So let me switch to my palette here, just to explain to you what's going on. The real darks are here, black, most of the darks. I'm using that very sparingly. Halftones, the values for the skin right here. Now, so on the, I'm going to go with a slightly warmer kind of highlight because everything is cool on the face. Trying to mix up like the lightest light I can come up with, okay, in relation to that. And I'm going to mix a little bit of it into here, and I'm going to use it in most places, and then save this for just one of the areas. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to switch this now to, okay, the glare. There's a glare right here that's not, I don't know what that is. I think it's the glare from the light right there. That's what it is. Okay. So I'm going to switch this to the easel again, to the painting. And I see a little bit of this line. Now I'm going to put this down, and it's going to look like the lightest light by a long shot, correct? Notice that? And just really looking kind of makes it look very 3D. I'm going to close this and just kind of push it in. Right now, this is the lightest light in the painting. Just being aware of that. I'm just going to push it back just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put the same thing. Where's the same, I'm going to put some of it right here, because then it looks like the cheek is catching some of that light. And maybe some of it's right here. All of a sudden, it's starting to look a lot more three-dimensional because of these little things. This light is not on top of the lip. It's a little higher, okay? So that's making it look nice and 3D as well. Same thing with the chin. This part of the chin is going to kind of, so it's important to understand where the light's coming from and where it's not. Okay, but now these look like the lightest lights. Now watch. Actually, I should fix this at the bottom first. This really is in part of the shadow. It's going to kind of lose that completely. There's a lovely cool tone here, probably from her dress because it's blue. Just going to lose that. That's better there because that was distracting. I'm constantly looking at the whole painting and coming back to what I'm working on. And I want to show you this real good highlight. Just defining the nose just a little bit. Notice I'm not, even though I have just about an hour or a little bit more with you today, I'm not really painting like on faster than I than I can because it's not accurate. So I think being accurate is more important. Just defining that part of the nose right there. Okay. We should really define that, but I want to show you this highlight, and then I'm going to put just a little bit of the hair in to kind of wrap it up. So I'm picking up that lightest light, and it's a little warm. And don't just kind of put it down. Look at your reference. Part of it is kind of, it helps define the shape of her nose. Part of it's like this. Notice now I've put this, see how much darker that looks in relation to that. It's just incredible how being focused on your values really kind of helps define. And there's a drawing to that right there. Okay. I'm just kind of drawing this as carefully as I can. And I've made that very prominent now. So I can take a softer brush and maybe just a slightly less white. Maybe put some more red in it or yellow, whatever, doesn't matter. And I'm going to slowly kind of brush that in just a little bit so it doesn't seem as prominent. Okay, I've just kind of, in fact, lost the whole thing there. I'll come back and kind of put it down again, just at least in that area right there. So it's much more resolved looking. Yeah, I like that. I want to make her smile, so I want to do two things here and then take 5 minutes on the hair to kind of show you. Really haven't been able to work on that drawing much because of the 1 hour limit, which we're pretty much right at right now. But I'm going to keep going for a minute, so hang in there, please. Okay. Just defining this eye just a little bit there. And I want to, the more I think about it, the less edges you have, the kind of the more, well, for sure, the edges you have then are much more prominent because nothing's competing for attention with them. And the transitions are better. The temptation is to overwork this area. Instead, just squint. You have to squint and see what you're seeing and just put that little bit down instead of everything that you can see if you stare at, one little part, because it's a relative organization of what's going on, right? There's no reason to overdo that. I think she needs, I really like how there's a lot of softness kind of developing there. I'm going to make this part just a little bit more prominent. You're absolutely welcome to ask questions, guys. Unmute it if you move your mouse to the left bottom corner of your screen. And then you can unmute your video and ask a question if you'd like. So, making her smile, giving her, this is an important shape too. One of the things I hope you've noticed is that my reference is really good. It has a lot of information in there for me, so I don't have to guess. That's another big part of the puzzle. Now I would spend a lot of time just kind of tweaking. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know why I did that right there. I was wrong. So let's fix it. I want to put the hair in quickly. That was not very smart, Raj. You make a mistake, fix it immediately. Just using this tone to start to explain some of the darker parts of the shadow shapes. Okay, that seemed important. And let's fix the other part of it right here too. Okay, there seems to be a beautiful little edge right here. Let's put that there. That's good. Okay, for the hair, I'm not going to do all of it, but this is in the light. Most of that's in the shadow. So let's just go ahead and put, and again, slow down. This is not a race. Go as, find the pace that works for you. So, and as I put this down, a lot of the shadow will start to lighten up a little bit too, because there's a darker value next to it. And you can put this down fairly. You can take your time and put down maybe some alizarans and some blues fairly transparently, wash them in, and then put some opaque stuff, whatever. It's just absolutely like I'm putting in a fairly transparent kind of wash up there. Or you can go more opaque with it, it's fine. I'm about ready to wrap this up. Okay, let's go there. Defining. This relationship is very, very key. If I put the ear higher, then she's looking down. If I put the ear lower, then she's looking up. She's looking straight at me, so I have to get that part right. Just trying to slow down and draw even at this the whole time. Right. Let's take a picture of that. Okay. All right. Show you how the light value on the hair works. Then I will let you guys go. Just wait for a second still. So these are kind of the dark values right here. I want to leave these holes in the shadow for sure. And I think I need to move all the eyeballs kind of this way a little bit because it's looking like she's looking to my left. The little shifts will kind of take care of that, but that's just a drawing thing right now. This is important as I do this. I want to make sure I don't want a real sharp edge there. So I'm going to paint over it as I'm doing this, defining her cheek right here. Okay. Wish I had more time. I'd keep going. Okay, so let's define two little things to do here. So I've got the hair, for example, okay? All still in the shadow right here, okay? Okay. All right, there. This part's in the shadow, all that's in the light. I'm going to fix that in just a second. I'll show you what I'll do there. So here, let's mix up something that's pretty close to the value of the light, maybe just a hair darker, but definitely nowhere near anything that's happening here, even though it's jet black hair. I want to, so I'm going to put that down here so it kind of explains the way the light's been moving through the whole time. The rules apply to the whole surface, not just the face. So maybe one strand of hair like this. And then she's parted her hair on the top. So I'm going to use a little bit of a half-tone paint and kind of put some of that there to kind of show you how she wears her hair, right? So I'll just put some of that there. And then let's put in one little dark thing here. Okay. And then over time, I'd just kind of make all kinds of little, because her hair is kind of sticking out there a little bit. Let's see, let's take a picture of that. I think I'm gonna switch my camera to the palette again so I can explain what's happening there. Just you kind of see. The only thing I haven't done in a proper organized way because of lack of time is this value of the hair right here. I technically should have mixed it somewhere here. Does that make sense? So it is a little bit darker than what's happening here, but because it's up on top, they're not near here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and put some of this. I'll move my camera in a second. On top here, you'll see it. I'll move my camera one sec. So the darks, shadow values, halftones, light value, mother value, and then highlight. Okay. Let's switch it to the other guy, and then if you've got a question, just type it in if you'd like. It's absolutely fine. Let me see. I see the question here. I'll answer it right now. For getting a good reference shot, the question is, what advice do you have for getting a good reference photo of someone? It's hard. You have to take several pictures, and on the iPhones and the new phones, if you tap on the screen when you're on the camera, and if you bring your finger down on it, it lets you change the contrast. So I'll show it to you with my phone right now. So underexposing, really trying to make sure the key thought here is you want to have some information in the lights and you want to have some information in the dark. So bright sunlight's probably the hardest thing to shoot because of the contrasting value. So sometimes I've taken two photographs, one that's really focusing on the light shape and one on the shadow. And a lot of times now, if I underexpose and I put the picture into Photoshop, I can lighten the shadows a little bit. And that usually works pretty well for me. I'm just trying to give her a bit of a chin here. Hope that answers your question right there. And I'll show you what I'm talking about from a exposure standpoint, okay? So we're thinking of offering some classes pretty soon, given what's going on with this COVID crisis. So I hope you've enjoyed this part of the. So can you see my phone? Yeah, I think you can. So if I tap on it, a little square appears. It's yellow in color, and if I put my finger down, look how dark that got. And I'm just sliding my finger up. So I'm overexposing here and I'm underexposing here. So that should give you a little sense of what you can do with taking these pictures. Any other questions? Good. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much. There's something bugging me right here. I think most artists have to be ADD, I think, because you're always thinking about 10 things here. Just going to fix that right there because she doesn't have Spock's ears. Much better. Cool. And I'll send you guys, maybe if you'll stay on for a second, I'll send you a high res of this image right now on the Zoom meeting so you can download it before I end the meeting. And I'll send you a picture of my palette too right now. And thank you so much for staying. So give me 2 seconds. I'll switch it to, I'm just going to transfer these images over. If you've got any questions, please ask. I'll send you just a couple of pictures through this as I've been taking these pictures, just to show you the process. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to airdrop it to my computer here, and I'll upload these images right now, and you'll see it in the chat, and you can download them. Okay. Go to downloads. Come on. Well, give me just 1 second here. And if you've got a question, please unmute and ask. It's not a problem. Come on. I'm trying to airdrop it from my phone to my computer, and it's taken a minute. Come on, let's go. Oh, of course, it doesn't want to behave. There it is. Cool. Okay. I will give you these images one by one now. So if you look in the chat window right here, here are the high-res images of the demo. I'm going to File, go to my computer, go to Draw, Downloads, and here they are. I'm not sure what order they're going to come to you, but I'm just going to send you several. Yeah, I think this will be very useful for you. So here we go. So I have to do it one at a time. So one is right there. 2. So you guys should have the images. 3. 4. So I think you just need to click on it. I won't end the meeting till then. 4, and you'll have them. 5. And then the last one's going to be just a picture of my palette. Yeah, the palette organization is so important. I cannot tell you. It's underrated. Okay, so let's switch to me, and I'll wave goodbye. So I'll stay here just for a second. This is my studio right here. We're doing the class for the league right here. Thank you for coming and joining us. And the video will be available off the Art Students League website maybe tomorrow. If you've got questions, please ask. Otherwise, thank you so much for staying a good hour and 15 minutes or so for the demo. I hope you've enjoyed it. Oh, hi, Starlin. Yeah, absolutely, Joan. Daniel, of course, anytime. Guys, stay safe and healthy, please. All right. Going to end the meeting. Unless somebody tells me not to, if you haven't downloaded the images. I'll wait 2 seconds and I'll end it.